space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of Starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission, to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilization, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Greetings, salutations, and welcome to Retrek. I'm Captain Jim. With me, of course, is Admiral Elliot, and joining us this week is Dr. Squee.
Happy Leg Day.
Mini Spock.
Mini Spock. Oh, which one's that? Is that oh, it's not a, what is it? Is it? It's not a Funko Pop. It's a different...
Titans.
Oh, yeah. I think I've got Evil. I think I've got Mirror Spock version of that with his little goatee.
It was $4.99, I think it was on sale, so he came home with me.
Yeah, mine were cheap as well, so yeah, I was happy with that.
By the way,
right.
just very quickly, just thank you guys. I was about to kind of jokingly rip into you, but like, oh, so you've got your names on, I'm still not in the credits, and there I was at the end going,
you are.
I love it. Like hippie
credits. See, that's how we respond. We get a complaint and we deal with it.
That's the Retrek way, guys.
So we're here to talk about, we've had a brand new season premiere of Star Trek, Lower Decks Season 2. Even for the people in the UK, we got to see it. So
yeah. It dropped quite late, though. It didn't drop till nearly 11:30 in the morning.
Did it not? That's no good if you want to watch it before you go to work. You want it like nice and early, don't you? Anyway, so we've got a brand new episode of Star Trek to talk about. And if we get time, we're going to talk about the very first episode of Star Trek. Well, kind of the very first episode of Star Trek.
Well, if you're reading the YouTube description, it's either episode 1, 2, 3, or 4, depending on your point of view.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
because it's broadcast order, it's filming order, then there's
production
VHS release order, production order. You've got like
on
a million different ways.
On Netflix, it's episode 4. For a long time in the UK, because we didn't get the cage till the 1980s, it was episode 1. If you include the cage, it's episode 2.
You know what? I count it as episode 1. So we might talk about where No Man Has Gone Before.
Hey guys, might I say, look, because I just want to give you guys praise for your genius. Like, you just go, I said, oh, why would we pick this one? Pick that particular one. You go, well, you know, most recent and the first one. I go, okay, that's cool. I watched the 2 episodes and like, are you guys psychic or something? Or do you just read the episode description?
No,
because they cannot be themed in better. They mentioned that episode in this episode of Low Deck.
Well, we'd already, me and James had already seen the episode and decided, oh, we'll cover Where No Man's Gone Before. So I put it on our group messenger. Realised as soon as you asked me why that episode, that you hadn't seen it. So I just thought, oh, well, I won't say it's mentioned and ruin Lower Decks for you. I'll just say first and last. So I was actually trying not to ruin it for you.
I thought maybe you had been like whammied by some kind of alien device which had given you glowy eyes and shit.
Well, as soon as you said you answered on the group message why that episode, I realised that you obviously hadn't seen the new episode of Lower Decks. So I just threw in a really quick...
Yeah, I thought that
was thinking on my feet.
That was really fast thinking, Elliot, was that.
Nice.
The episode. So that sort of touched on what we're going to do with these Lower Decks episodes, because there's so many callbacks and things like that. We're going to watch the episode and then we're going to pick out a prominent episode that's referenced.
If there is one.
If there is one.
If not, we'll be continuing the Dominion War arc.
If it's one that we've not already covered, obviously, if they pull an episode that we have done, we're not going to subject you to that again. We've got 100 episodes you can go back on if you want to find us talking about whichever one it is. So,
well, we have got 93 that we didn't do streaming, so.
And you're not gonna run out of references from Lower Decks to other episodes. There will be something like with your expertise grasp you guys have done of the Dominion War, even like one opaque reference in one episode, you've managed to pick it out to redo. You can do that with Lower Decks easily.
Funnily enough, there is a reference to the Dominion War in this episode.
There is.
There you go.
We picked out a little clip to show. So, first of all, Elliot, talk us through why this excites you so much. The start of the episode where we've got Mariner escaping from a Cardassian prison.
This is about a minute into it, actually. Like, we've had the chain of command already, where it starts obviously with Mariner's the prisoner of the Cardassians, and she does a prison break. But don't you think that's lovely when she's got Boimler and he complains, they keep showing lights.
Me lights.
They keep showing me lights.
I mean, that is always my go-to reference for another, like, you know, when you're dealing with another Trekkie, when he goes like, I see 4 lights, you know, like if they get that reference, everything else is cool. Like that's the go-to. And they reference that. Beautiful.
Yeah. But when we get to here and Mariner's got this Miranda-class she's stealing the USS Macduff. But this is just lifted from the Wharf of Khan.
Yes, the bridge is very...
they've done, like, how many times have we seen it? Like, DS9 did it with the Galaxy class and they had to build a new bridge and it doesn't look the same as what you used to. But here, because it's animation, they've been able to go, this is what a Miranda should look like.
Yeah.
And they've got the displays, like that style of cars that they had and everything. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, what was really cool about the Miranda Bridge in Wrath of Khan was that it was the Enterprise Bridge redressed, and, you know, it ruins a bit of the movie magic, but the fact is, those two scenes were shot at vastly different times, and they filmed all the Enterprise scenes on the Enterprise Bridge, then redressed it, then filmed all the
Well, that's movie magic, innit?
Yeah, but that's great.
I think this really highlights why, like, they can get away with taking the piss so much out of Star Trek is because they show that love. Like, if they didn't show that attention to detail of every single aspect of every ship, of every reference being spot on, then when they take the piss, you take it harshly because, like, they're just taking the piss without showing the love. They show the love first, and then they take the piss out of stuff, which we take the piss out as fans because you can tell it's other fans doing it. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Like this bit with all the ships, so we've just had a Jem'Hadar ship get blown up, so that's our Dominion War reference. And then this one that comes up, I think that's a Bajoran ship. I think from when they have, like, is it the Homecoming, the Circle, the Siege? They have, like, a Bajoran fighter in that one that Dax and Kira steal, and so I think that's what's going on there. I'm not even sure what that one is that just got blown up. But, yeah, that third one. So there's Jem'Hadar, there's what I think's a Bajoran. Not even sure. I think it might be the one out of that where they're like a war species. I can't remember. And then there's just so many, but
there's, like, you could do a whole breakdown on this if you wanted.
And
just the ships. I do know someone is going to be doing it. I saw them advertising on YouTube.
Yeah. You can bet your bottom dollar, though, like you were saying, Squee, with the attention to detail, there won't be a ship in these shots that is not a ship that we've seen before. You know, they will not have just drawn a ship shape and tried to get away with it.
No, they haven't. It's all...
Absolutely everything there will be referenced. So, yeah.
It's the same thing with the dialogue. Like, every line of dialogue... Sorry to cut you off, Jim. But every line of dialogue is just that same attention to detail you see visually. Like, they won't go a line without making some back reference, which can be just so subtle sometimes that if you blink, you'll miss it, even for the most hardened Star Trek fan.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, Elliot spotted the name Macduff. I don't think that's direct to Star Trek. I mean, obviously, it's, you know, reference to Macbeth and everything, but you do, as soon as you see the name of a ship or you see a number of a ship, you think, right, what are they going to be getting at with this? And, I need to rack my brain to see what they're talking about here.
Well, this is NCC 1877. So it's 13 ships after the Reliant.
Right.
To roll off the shipyard, so...
I bet 1877's something significant, but I can't quite.
I can't think what it is.
Bring it to mind.
And I've not seen anything online at all this week to reference.
Probably Admiral Picard crossing the, doing some battle, like in the, when they see all those terrible pictures of Picard's ancestors. Probably a date that he did something. I don't know.
So it turns out this is all Mariner's cardio workout, which I like the idea that instead of going down the gym, it's like, no, I'll go on the holodeck and I'll escape from a Cardassian prison. the reps and everything for the day. I think that's a great conceit. And you used to get it with Worf, didn't you? Like, he'd do his calisthenics and his training and everything. But I like that Mariner takes it to the next level by having a big story and everything.
And her shipmate comes in and goes like, "What the hell are you doing? You do use this as cardio? That's ridiculous."
For its leg day. And then there's a very meta joke where she says, "I know we're not supposed to have interpersonal conflict," which was obviously famously that was Gene Roddenberry's edict to the writers of The Next Generation, which had them absolutely tearing the hair out for the first 3 seasons, that you weren't allowed any conflict between the Federation characters. And it, as we know, conflict is what drives drama, and it's very difficult to write drama without. So,
and he did that in the original series. Like, there was loads of conflict and stuff, so he kind of went against himself. And you felt like he'd really, at that stage, become the problem he had to work against. So he's always working against executives, trying to sneak in progressive messages and kind of all this stuff. And then by the time Next Generation rolls around, they have to work around him, which is kind of
he was actually the problem in Next Gen early seasons.
Yeah, I think
sadly enough.
I think it was that he became even more sort of idealistic as he got older. And he wanted this utopian vision and everything, which we all love. We wouldn't be here talking about Star Trek if we didn't like that. But if you take it to that degree, it doesn't make for good TV. And that's the problem,
Yeah, what's even sadder is the people who go on about Discovery being so woke. And you have this from the first 3 seasons of the Next Gen that they all love and swear by.
Yeah.
But, we see
so
that
like we're Star Trek fans. We're like all the incarnations of it. But there's a hate group out there, and they're just hating on new Trek for reasons. And you go, but that was happening all the time in Next Gen, or that was happening all the time in the original series.
The great thing is that in 10 years, whatever the new Star Trek is, people will be saying, "This is terrible. Discovery were brilliant. I can't believe you're doing it."
It's people who just can't accept that. So basically, if they grow up with something then that's
new.
Perfect. That's great. Yeah, exactly. It's like you get the same thing with Star Wars, same thing with Doctor Who. Like, just some people can't accept any change, and as soon as there is a change, they blame stuff which was in the original products, in those original films and stuff. Like, all those kind of Star Wars fanboys who are complaining about the new trilogy, and it's like, well, if you watch the original films, like, I'm sorry, I think they're wonderful, but they're not perfect. Like, that scene on Dagobah could be just condensed a little bit. Like, I'm not saying that they aren't great films, but they just immortalize these kind of older properties. So like Next Gen, like you say, is perfect. And it's not, I'm sorry, but
and the Star Wars thing exemplifies it perfectly at how it's just the latest thing they don't like, because you get these people now who go, "These sequels are terrible, but the original 6 films were great," and it's like, no, the prequels were terrible.
You spent 20 years complaining about the prequels, but now you've got something new to complain about.
And all of a sudden the prequels are brilliant. And anyway, we'll have to do a Star Wars prequel podcast. So the opening credits then. So we've got a bit of a revamp on the Cerritos.
Well, at the end of episode 10, season 1, the Cerritos was getting a refit.
It was, yeah.
And we can see it here, and there's a lot of differences actually. You can make out the torpedo tubes properly on the top.
Yeah.
The bridge is more defined.
I thought the nacelles looked different. I don't know if I'm making that up. But...
No, they've upgraded the look of the buzzards at the front and the grills.
And plus,
there's lots of differences. But they've added navigation lights. But whoever's added them has no idea what navigation lights are, because they just alternate red and green all the way around the saucer.
Yeah, that's not how they work.
Yeah, it should be red should be on the port side left, and green on the starboard right.
Maybe it's to confuse the enemy.
God knows.
Also, you'll notice the boulder's moved over to the other side and it's slightly bigger.
Yep, there you go. The asteroids have taken a difference. And then in the battle scene, this is a bit different. They've put the pack lens in from the end of...
There's also Klingon bird of prey in there as well.
There we go.
I've got to say, I'm glad you've done this, guys, because I was watching and going, it's like, it looks like, I'm sure it's the same scenes, but they look different somehow. Like, it is maybe better.
It's the same, but they've updated it.
Improved it.
That other one, the one we've just seen with the Borg, that's got the refit Cerators in as well. And you can see on the lower saucer that there's more of a sort of frame that's holding the cells in place.
Right.
And it looks like the saucer would be properly settable now.
Oh, you know what this is? This is they want to sell new toys because they've just done a big deal with Playmates to do a new range of Star Trek toys next year.
And you can see, on the engineering hull as well is a lot more detail to it. I'm not sure if either of these pictures show it, but you can also make out the two shuttle bays now. All right,
so we've got more detail and everything.
It's like it's had a HD refit.
Even though we started in HD, but maybe it's 4K now or 8K.
Possibly.
Does it cost extra to watch it in HD? No, sorry, that was another conversation before the microphone on.
Probably. Depends which provider you're watching on. That's the problem. But at least we've got it in this country this time. So the B plot then, Rutherford and Tendi. So Rutherford's had this brain thing, hasn't he? That he
had his implant ripped out, didn't he, at the end of the last season, and it's been refitted, obviously.
And so now he's dating the same woman that he was dating in season 1, episode 1.
Yeah,
but he can't remember that it didn't go very well, so he's doing it again, and
it's going really well.
Yeah, it does seem to be until Tendi gets involved, I suppose.
So wonderful. I love this whole idea of so you've got a sort of slightly serious thing of with an implant, it can affect your mind because obviously it's jacked into your mind. So they talk about this genuine syndrome. So it's supposed to Tandy goes oh yeah, better just watch out for him, better kind of check he's okay. It's right, I must rip out his implant, I must do this. She just goes kind of complete nuts, obviously, because of her feelings for him.
Well, and it's because he likes pears.
Yeah, that's
yeah, Admiral Elliot, by the way, with your pair-based spoilers in the Retrek group. Wait until everyone's seen it. I didn't know it was going to end up hating pears again by the end of the episode. Spoilers, by the way. Fucking ruined that for me, mate.
Right, I think we'll put a thing up about when you can post anything about the next Lower Decks.
Yes, okay. We'll have an embargo going forward.
We'll have an embargo till maybe Monday. Give people a chance to watch it over the weekend.
Yeah. I know it's only about pets, but it was the last. It was literally one of the last lines of the episode. It's certainly the last one he says. I'm like, oh, fuck Elliot.
It's my new favourite saying.
Yeah, it's a good one. And then we've got on the planet. Then Ransom's dealing with this species, and I love this idea that they're going to assign him a number, and it's doing that thing that, I mean, now you just...
Well, all it is it's literally the radio frequency that they're going to use.
But what it's taking off is, I mean, now most people just sign up to a phone contract online and you get it delivered the next day or whatever, but I remember going in the shop and I'm showing you a big list and going, which one do you want to be your number? and you'd
I
scan
remember
down
that.
and try and pick out a number that's
You
less
might remember.
complicated. Yeah, so mine's got like 3 sets of double numbers in it, so it's it's not too hard to remember. But I remember them showing the list and going, "Which one do you want?" And so we've got that going on, but also we were talking about this just the other week about how they've got a different pad for everything. Like they can't get all the data on one pad. So Ransom's got this thing of, I've shown you this list, now bring me another pad to show me the next list instead of just scrolling up.
Yes, I think what they've done is, because this is something which, it's either a direct piss take from Next Generation or on Star Trek Next Conversation, which is obviously secondary to this wonderful podcast, but it's not a bad Star Trek podcast if you want to listen to that one after you've listened to this. Yeah. But they've extensively commented on the fact that it's so funny that they had such a paucity of imagination, as opposed to going, here's your pad, this contains all the information. They're looking through multiple pads in Next Generation all the time.
Yeah. Well,
so
they did the same on DS9, didn't they? Yeah. Right at the end when they capture Sloan at the inside his head, and there's all the different plots he knows, and everyone's on a different pad.
That's sort of a metaphysical puzzle, But yeah, I mean, we were talking about it last week with Nog and Cisco, how he was giving him all the different ones. So yeah, we get a direct sort of call out to that. And then Mariner wants to clean up the statues and everything. And she's got this thing on, which reminded me, and it might be because I've just replayed it recently, but does anyone remember Mario Sunshine, which was the GameCube Mario game, where Mario had like a vacuum on his back that sprayed water? And what you had to do was run round, and everything had like this gunky oil stuff on it. And you had to run around and spray it with this stuff to clean it. And as you cleaned it, stuff shone out of it, because the things you had to collect in the game were called shines. So you'd have loads of bits where there's a big star covered in mud, and you'd spray your thing at it with this backpack, exactly like Mariner does. And as the mud comes off, it'd start to shine like it does in this episode. I'm wondering if one of them's a gamer and they've been playing, because Mario Sunshine was recently re-released for the Nintendo Switch. So I would imagine that quite a few people played it during lockdown, and I'm wondering if somebody involved with Lower Decks did, because it's uncanny the similarity.
Yeah, no, that tracks. The other thing I wanted to pick up on is the fact that I think this is the biggest Ransom episode we've had yet. Would you guys agree? Yeah. I am blown away, and I've kind of I've noticed it on the episodes where he features a bit less, but I can never hear. I'm going to blank on his name now. From
Jerry O'Connell.
Jerry O'Connell, of course. Jerry O'Connell. I can never hear his voice in it.
No, I agree.
Wonderful voice. Job of changing his voice, and here he's got a featuring role in most of the episode, and you still can't hear him in it. That's wonderful. No. And he's not a voice actor, he's not traditionally a voice actor. Amazing.
No, I agree with you completely. Yeah, I was trying to key into it this episode as well. And yeah, you like you say, it's just you wouldn't know. In fact, they probably could have got someone cheaper and got away with it. But
it's kind of funny, actually. I suppose now you put it that way, you kind of want it if you've got Jerry O'Connell to hear Jerry O'Connell.
You want to hear Jerry O'Connell, but no.
Jerry O'Connell money. You want to hear Jerry O'Connell. You don't want to hear random voice that Jerry O'Connell is very cannily doing.
Yeah, exactly. So he gets zapped, and it's this. I love that they've given a name to Strange Energy, which is where we get the episode title from. But yeah, Star Trek does have a lot of strange energy flying about, particularly.
It's really clever because it fits into the TOS episode. But TOS, it was always strange energies. They weren't ever explained what the beams were.
Yeah.
And TNG has been accused of technobabble, and everything adds it'd be a delta, neutron, whatever thing. And these have just gone, no, we'll give it a name. It's strange energies.
Yeah, I think that's just directly lovingly taking the piss out of the original series. I think it's great.
Yeah, love it. And then Tendi and Rutherford, they've got this thing where she's fitted him up with all these, like, basically pads that she's zapping him with these electric shocks.
Well, it looks like the cortical stimulators, doesn't it? That they normally put one on you, or maybe two at a push. And he's got God knows how many that she's put all over him.
It's really good fun, but I think if I were to have a criticism of the episode, it'd be I feel like we've sort of done this with Tendi and Rutherford a lot, and I don't mind it because it's the start of a new season, so it's easing you back in. It's like, here are the characters again, doing stuff you enjoy. So, you know, I'm fine, but I want to see him doing something a bit different.
Well, we did end season 1 where he'd had like his implant ripped out and he was in bandages, and she was talking to him in his hospital bed.
Yeah.
And she was having to remind him about everything that they'd been through.
Oh, yeah, exactly. But I don't mean I want to watch it all again. You know, I can go back and watch season 1 again. You know, I'll let it go because it's a premiere and it is entertaining. But I think it's one of them things. It'd be nice to see their relationship move forward now. Yeah. Mix it up a bit.
Yeah.
So back with Ransom then. He's making zombies. He also
he's making a race of Ransomites.
Sorry, a race of Ransomites. He also makes this Mount Rushmore thing of himself, which I think's really good. I don't know if that is a reference to I'm not sure whether it's classed as a Voyager novel or an original series novel. But it's by Greg Cox, and basically it starts as a Voyager novel. And Voyager's flying through the Delta Quadrant, and they go to a planet, and they find this mountain, and carved into the mountain is Captain Kirk's face. And it has this weird paragraph where Janeway's going, "Ooh, this handsome Starfleet captain carved into the face." Not written by Shatner.
It sounds like it.
It sounds like a Shatner type novel.
It does, doesn't it? But the rest of the episode, the rest of the book rather, ends up somehow, I can't remember how, but 7 of 9 ends up going back in time to the original series, and it's 7 of 9 on the original ship. And anyway, but the point is there's a Mount Rushmore of Captain Kirk, and I wonder if this is maybe a reference to that. I don't know.
I think actually there might be a direct, more recent parallel, because let's just not forget it's still Star Trek. Star Trek can still do parallels to the real world. There was that thing. I know this is a little bit dated now, but God, for every year which Trump, I'm sorry to bring it up again, but for every year that Trump was president, it seems like there was 100 years in every year. And I think it was in one of his last years that as president that he said about putting his face, he introduced a conversation about putting his face on Mount Rushmore, which instantly everyone just took the piss out of, and he was like, "Oh no, I was just having a conversation about it. I wasn't really suggesting it."
Oh, of course.
And that might have been since the last series ended and this one began. So it might be a dig at him.
It could well be.
In which case, I'm all for it. If you want to have a pop at Trump, that's brilliant. Let's keep doing it.
Because if you ask me, I'd say probably that thing which Trump did was about 1 million years ago. You know, obviously, but with Trump, time is irrelevant. Like, since he's been on, it's been such wonderful kind of time.
And then 2019, we got Trump. Or 2020 rather, we got Trump and pandemic, and it was just that was about 10 years that year. It was just
that's the exact same thing. Stuff that's happened during the pandemic. I know we're all living through it, obviously, and like here, lockdown's eased, which it hasn't around the world. I do understand all that, but during core lockdown in the UK, it seemed like the whole of that time was no time and all the time in the world all at once.
I know exactly.
Presidency.
It's like I'm still referring to things that happened in 2019 as last year.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And yet 2020 was such a long time.
Yeah.
It's really weird. Yeah. It's definitely.
Same thing with Trump's presidency, I think.
Yeah.
So regardless,
it's not done any of our heads much good.
No, we got a lot of podcasting done though, and a lot of watching. So, there's benefits. Tendi then spoils Rutherford's date by shooting him. Effectively, it's going well this time. And
it was about to go swimming in cetacean ops. I really want to see cetacean ops.
I'm sure we will. I feel like if they've dropped that in, we're going to see it at some point.
They dropped it in episode 1 of season 1 when they were showing the schematics of the ship. So
I feel like it's coming. And I want, when it does, I want a cameo, even though this is from a different show, but I want that dolphin out of Sequest DSV.
Darwin, yeah.
Darwin. I want him to turn up. Because that were a Star Trek knockoff. Like, should we do Star Trek Under the Sea and hope they don't notice?
They actually advertised it as Star Trek Underwater.
Right, which is exactly what it was.
I love Sequest DSV, but it was advertised on TV as Star Trek Underwater before.
Did you know that? I read up on this. I read it on Wikipedia because I can't find Sequest DSV anywhere, and even if I could, I probably wouldn't want to watch it. But they end up getting abducted by aliens at the end of it. Yes. That's how the series ended. I was like, "You what?" No.
It ended Sequest DSV, and then was Sequest 2030, whatever.
That was turned from and it was Michael Ironside.
But I still say though, with Star Trek, it started off as Wagon Train to the Stars. So Sequest DSV wants to start as Star Trek Underwater. It's just continuing as the thing on.
No, it's absolutely fine. But so I want to see Darwin in the cetacean, whatever it is, room.
Cetacean ops.
And then Ransom's head starts attacking the ship then. So
this is like just so much who mourns for Adonis, isn't it?
It is. I mean, this is the thing. It's ridiculous, but it's not unprecedented. It's no more silly than what we've had.
Yeah, exactly. There's none of this is unprecedented. What's going on?
We know that there's a big giant head at the center of the galaxy that's not very nice. So.
I mean, I know we're going to get on to if we've got time where No Man's Gone before, but it's just lovely references. Like, well, how did they kill Mitchell on that? In that instance, they just hit him with a large rock.
And it's got the Doctor all the way through is just basically planning to drop a big rock on him. And he does. Yeah. Diving into the serious plot points, I suppose that. The whole point of this is that we set up this new dynamic at the end of season 1, which was the captain and Mariner are going to work together. And this episode basically puts us back to the status quo that, you know what, we don't actually like working together. So let's go back to how we were, where we were a little bit more antagonistic with each other. So they've learned to respect each other a lot more, but they've also realised
that they don't like working together.
Exactly. So it ends up with that brilliant bit which we saw in the trailers, where it's I'm getting sent to the brig, aren't I? And she gets dragged off and everything.
Yeah, in future you will do as you're told. No, I won't. I'll do what I want.
Yeah. And I love the fact that you've got all this stuff going on with the head, and it's like, okay, let's try praising him, and that seems to work a little bit. But it's basically Mariner kicking the body in the balls repeatedly is what actually sorts it out.
Well, he throws up, he literally, she kicks him in the balls, he throws up the strange energies.
Yes. Yeah, it's, I mean, again.
I love the fact they have their cake and eat it too. So they do the traditional Star Trek approach to like, let's communicate with his better selves and let's talk to him in the heart, and they start relating to him, and then soon his ego even takes over that.
Yeah.
So they do a bit of bait and switch with us there, which is
it's like, you'll be my number one. No, number one's not good enough. I'm going to be the captain.
Yeah.
I like that it offends the captain's ego for a second. She's like, no, wait a minute. There can only be
I'm the captain. There can't be two captains.
I like that there's that element to her where she's like, I'll only take this so far, you know?
Yeah.
Which is very Kirkish, actually. You can imagine Kirk doing that, like, you know, playing along with someone to a certain extent, but then when they say, well, can I be the captain? Absolutely not. So I can imagine that from Kirk.
Who's got the ill-fitting tunic here? Not you, sir.
And then we get a very brief little bit of Boimler at the end where they're all jealous of him. And, you know, it's, he must be doing so well on the Titan. And then we just get this utter chaos that we see.
I really wish I could remember the line exactly, but I love the bit when, like, Riker's going, it's like, well, this jam session's going more salty than sweet. And he goes, what the hell does that mean?
What does that mean? And he's right. If you're not into jazz, it's like, what the hell is he talking about?
When I say salty and sweet, they do a reference. Like, sorry for anyone who remembers the line correctly, but it's like they do a reference, which I bet anyone who knows jazz is spot on, but would make no sense to the rest of us. But they kind of put it into a Star Trek episode as a little bit of a quirky Riker line. I
love that they've latched onto this thing of, well, we know Riker likes jazz, so we're going to have that be his whole shtick as captain.
He's finally allowed to make everyone like jazz.
I really like that. And it was funny last season when they did it, and I love that they're running with it now, and we're no doubt going to hear more of it.
Like we did. I don't know if Marina's coming back for season 2. If we're going to see her next week, maybe.
I would hope so.
Like, I'd hope so.
I think we're spending more time on the Titan.
I know that she's relocated back to England. Yeah. But it's animated, so she can send in a voice recording.
That will have been after production finished as well on this. After recording finished.
I was kind of hoping in that scene you'd see just a little cartoon of her in the background. Like, even if you don't have a voice, you just put her in there. Like, there's no it's animation. You can see her. Like, just at least give us a little bit of a tease of that.
Yeah. I think we'll see Troy next week. Yeah. Well, I mean, Boimler looks like he's going to need some counselling, so that could be comedy gold.
Perfect.
Her having to counsel Boimler before and then she could recommend that he gets transferred back to a less stressful ship, and maybe that'll be how we get him back.
Yeah, well, there's got to be some way that he gets back, because he's obviously not cut out to be on the Titan with Riker.
No. But...
Do you know, I would love it if you start the episode of him being like back on the ship, and then him telling this heroic version of how he got back there, and then as he's telling it, we see the real version.
Yeah.
And we've got kind of maybe Troy counselling him through it, and like him hiding under the bed sheets and shit.
Like that.
Well, we saw bits in the trailer, didn't we? So we know that there's more stuff to come on the Titan.
Yeah,
sort of like that.
But there's got to be a way that they're getting back to the Sotos. And it's got to make sense. It can't just go, oh, I don't like it, I want to go back. There's got to be being demoted or transferred or somebody's recommendation.
Well, that'll be the interesting thing as well, because he has been promoted. So even if he comes back, he will be of a higher rank than his friends. So that'll create personal conflict, which... Oof.
Unless he gets demoted again.
Yeah, he very well could do. So shall we move on and talk about Where No Man Has Gone Before then, which is the big inspiration for this episode. And as we alluded to earlier on, it's the second pilot. So anyone who doesn't know, which I'm sure anyone listening to this podcast knows the story, but the cage was made, the network didn't like it. They got another chance, and they made Where No Man Has Gone Before, and that was...
They submitted 3 scripts, didn't they?
They did.
They submitted, obviously, this script, Charlie X, and... what's the third one?
Mud's Women.
Was it Mud's Women, the third script?
Which should have been a terrible pilot, but...
But this is you can see why they picked this up. They wanted a sci-fi show.
Isn't the Man Trap also in the mix?
Yeah, I thought the Man Trap was the third one.
Because I'm sure that's sometimes listed as the first.
Man Trap was the first broadcast episode. I don't know. I
think it was the Man Trap, Charlie X, and this episode were the three scripts. But you can see why this one was picked as the second pilot for a sci-fi show.
It's got really good, bold sci-fi concepts. It starts off with, we're going to go beyond the galaxy. So I know they don't, but it's setting out an ambitious stall straight away. It feels like the start of a big mission. and it's got a bit of action. It has got interpersonal conflict. So I don't know how that one slipped under the radar, but I'd forgotten how much I love this episode. I think it holds up. Like, obviously, you know, there are things.
The things that actually annoyed me about this episode, and it's something I've started to realise, is I don't think I like the remastered versions of TOS with the new CGI. I think the CGI is reaching a point now where it actually isn't holding up. The first scene of the Enterprise that we saw here, I thought it looked cartoonish.
It does, but
Yeah,
I don't think it was.
It's quite annoying because the model of the Enterprise, which is in the Smithsonian, obviously, which they use for this, it's an iconic model. And it's like we should be able to see that on our screen still.
Yeah, well, you can if you buy the Blu-ray, but
I might have to buy the Blu-ray.
Yeah, that's got both versions. But I think the thing is, it wasn't that the model didn't look great. The model did look great, but the fact is that the cameras and the film that they used to film it have not weathered the test of time as well. So I think it was easier to just replace it all with CG than it would have been.
I know why they did it, and I've said previously, and I'll still say it, that the CGI isn't overdone.
No, it's not.
In this, like, if you look at, because this was done around the same time as Star Wars was remastered, and loads of extra stuff was added. Here, it's almost a shot-for-shot replacement.
Yeah.
I mean, my feeling is, like, I know exactly what you mean, because I did see it, and I was thinking, it's like, this is great, and it does look in some ways more polished, but, like, the ship just looks a little bit fake, like you say. And I just got that feeling of, like, it sort of took away that little hit of nostalgia. And for me as well, there's some episodes which were literally Emmy Award-winning, and the work which was Emmy Award-winning, you can't see anymore. And I think that's a disservice. It's like when in Star Wars, they replaced actors. They straight up replaced actors. They are now not in Star Wars.
Yeah.
And they played Darth Vader once. You know, it's like, that's not right to me. That's just taking someone's legacy and work. That's what really grinds me as well.
I think with these, they have been a lot more respectful than the Star Wars remasters.
Yeah, they have.
True.
And I think they've done a really good job of cleaning up the film on the live action scenes. And these episodes look way better than anything made in 1966, as any right to. But it's a shame that we can't have the best of both worlds and still have the old effects as well as. Yeah,
I would like them to have taken those outside shots and remastered them, and that's it. Like, you know, they look as good or as clunky as you will, but they're just the same as, like, when I look at the things, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit, when you're on the planet and you see out the windows those painted backgrounds, they look beautiful. You know it's a painting, but it's like the imagery and the 60s feel of it. I feel like I'm there somehow, even though I know
it's a nostalgia thing.
I had a note specifically to talk about the matte paintings because this is something that's a lost art in the age of CGI. But I remember when I was a kid and you'd see a matte painting, whether it's in this or it's in the original Star Wars or Flash Gordon or whatever it is, you knew that it wasn't real, but you also knew that within the language of film, that means that there's a city there or whatever. And you accepted it. You know, it didn't have to look photorealistic. You just knew that that's how things looked in films.
Yeah.
And that's something we've lost now, that the attitude now is, well, we can make it look real with CGI. And the unfortunate...
it's like, where do you go with Star Trek? Because it's reaching a stage now where the CGI isn't looking good. It's looking cartoonish, so it isn't looking realistic. Like when it was first done, because of where CGI was, it had the appearance to you of looking better.
I don't even think it did then. To me, it's kind of like Right, so when you're looking at these episodes, you're looking at someone's vision, someone's almost dream, if you will. Like, especially those matte paintings in the background, they're so beautiful, they're so wonderful, and I feel like I'm there because I'm inside that person's dream or that person's vision. When you look at those opening shots, now you're taking someone else's dream based on their dream or their vision based on their vision. It's the vision of the early 2000s, whenever it was they did those CGIs. So it's going to date to the early 2000s, which I love, like dating to the early 90s or the 90s with Next Generation, because that's when it was filmed. And you're taking yourselves back to that place.
Yeah.
And when you're watching it, even if you weren't born then, I wasn't born in the 60s, but I'm taken back to what obviously they felt was the future in the 60s. I don't want to be taken to the 2000s for a 60s thing.
Yeah.
No, and there's something as well, and I don't mean with what I'm about to say to disrespect anybody who does digital art, because clearly there's a hell of a lot of talent involved in doing that. But for me personally, I don't feel the artistry in CGI as much as I do in practical effects like Ray Harryhausen or like with these matte paintings. There's something that feels much more tactile and much more
a building like how big is the Smithsonian Enterprise? About 2 meters long,
I
3
don't know.
meters long.
When I last went to Washington, they took it away for a month. Got it.
But it's an absolute ginormous model. It's something ridiculous, like I think it's 11 foot long or something stupid like that.
Yes,
and it's done like that so you can get so the camera can come in.
I mean,
and it's still like it's carved out of wood. For Christ's sake, it's the original Enterprise. It's not like what they were doing by Star Wars, where most of it's plastic model kits. But they carved this thing out of bloody wood and hollowed it out to put lights inside and motors.
And by and large, even though again, like James says, there's a skill to doing CGI, and I'm not speaking against it. If you're watching a film, you'll be somewhere, even if you don't notice it, there'll be a background or something with CGI, and you'll never notice it because it's done that well. That's fine. But when you're talking about models, it feels tactile because you can touch it. It's something you can touch.
Yeah.
There's still something they've not managed to do yet with CGI where you feel like you can touch it, because like Thanos looks great, but you know you can't pat him on the back.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, they inevitably will get there, but we're not quite there yet. But so CGI aside, then what I find really interesting about this, and we have talked about this before, is the original series was finding its feet and it was establishing a universe, and there are things that are inconsistent, like the whole premise of this episode. It's this business about ESP, and we never hear about this in Star Trek again. But
yes,
the society that we're presented with here is, every human has an ESP rating, and some people are stronger than others, and that's the way it is. And if it's your first episode, you world building, you go, okay, that's obviously what's going on in this world. That's fine. Never again. Never touched on.
Yeah, I mean, the same thing about pilots. It's like when they tried to do a reboot of Doctor Who, and they had Paul McGann, and they referenced that the Doctor's suddenly half human. Never mentioned again. They just roll on past it. They've accepted that's part of canon stuff. He was the Doctor and everything. We're just going to ignore that part of it. I'm totally good with this. It's such a central part of this episode, but it is taken in a completely different direction for all the Star Trek. Suddenly.
Yeah, it's a very different show if all of a sudden the majority of humanity has some degree of ESP. But interesting. I would have liked to have seen what they might have done with it.
I mean, this is what I like about this episode, because you do have the best of both worlds. You have got that feeling of Star Trek, and you see how they've laid up so many things which they will use here on out. But in other bits, you've got like some very lazy kind of like exposition where like they're playing chess. So like Spock has to put a line about, it's like, well, given that one of my ancestors was half human, he was human. I am half human, just in case you don't know it. And then like bits like that. But then you get other bits which are just glorious about like, where they're kind of finding their feet of what Star Trek is. So you've got like them with the ray guns, which are real kind of Forbidden Planet style ray guns.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
and I'm so glad Star Trek got its own film, its own look.
Well,
I
there's
kind
a
of
lot.
love seeing Star Trek through the prism of traditional 60s
Yeah.
kind of
Like,
wear.
well, you can see it sort of like we know this is like the second pilot, and then the first episode was the man trap. But you can see like there's a progression from the cage where the uniforms have become slightly more brighter.
Yeah, still
But you can also see the captain's chair still has the table lamp attached to it that is spoken to. It still has they still have the same view screen from the cage in the bridge.
Everything's just a bit more analog. Like, you know, you've got like when they have a tap, it's just a little turn on tap. It's not.
Yeah. And it alters by the man trap. There's more done to it. Like the colours become even brighter in the uniforms, which we've spoken about previously. And the bright uniforms in Star Trek is literally CBS, or was it NBC at the time? Yeah. Literally went to them. We want bright uniforms. We've just spent $500 million on colour TV and colour cameras because it was a new technology. Yeah. We want bright colours to show it off.
Yeah,
and that is literally why the Star Trek uniforms are gold, blue, and red.
Yeah,
because they wanted bright colours.
As another example, look at the '60s Batman show. You know that. Yeah. Between Star Trek and '60s Batman, it's a wonder there weren't more epileptic seizures in the '60s.
But it was, it was a very expensive technology for the TV studios to adopt. I can't remember the exact figure. When we talked about it previously, I looked it up, and I'm sure it's somewhere around $500 million.
Yeah,
that they spent for this new technology to be able to have colour TV to everyone.
If you look at the black and white episodes, the stills, like the photos they've taken in color, like a lot of the sets, they can be like, and the outfits, they can be a faded pink or a faded green because it represented and came out better on black and white. Yeah. And when they went through Next Generation, I'm sure you guys know this, but like the only reason why they flipped the colors for Command is because they thought Patrick Stewart looked better in red. So they just go, well, in the future it's red is Command.
Yeah.
And that's interesting.
Which was it where there were, where somebody was, I'm trying to remember which TV series it was, and somebody was literally, they were meant to be pale-faced, but they were painted in green makeup because of how it looked on the camera in black and white.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know a recent example that's done the rounds on the internet, and I don't know if it's been photoshopped or not, but I like to think not. It's Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe did a film called The Lighthouse, which is in black and white. And Robert Pattinson's outfit is sort of an old sailor's outfit, and he's got a cap and he's got dungarees and blah, blah, blah. But the picture that's been leaked in colour, he basically looks like Mario because he's got blue dungarees, a red T-shirt, so it shows up better in black and white, and he's got this.
It probably has.
Sash, and yeah, no, it's great. Talking of colours, then being a bit weird. Sulu in blue, which obviously we don't get.
Well, this makes a lot of sense actually. Sulu in blue, because that's the science department, and we know he's interested in his botany.
Yeah,
and we have Stamets in Discovery mentions his friend on the Enterprise into botany in the science department. Ooh. Sulu, he transferred departments, obviously.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I like that.
That's the fan explanation, isn't it?
No, but that fits into everything.
It does. And he's a mathematician in this one. It's Sulu. Give me the maths of it all.
Yeah. Do you know the one Asian character they've got, and they get him doing maths?
Yeah. I think
I've never noticed that until today.
What clearly happened in between the episodes is when we like this George Takei fella, we don't need a mathematician every episode, but we do need someone to fly the ship every week. So,
and you've either got,
it was one of those things, wasn't it? Like they did away with number one, which was Michelle Barrett. They said you can't have a second officer who's female, so he brought an Asian in. which was pretty much unheard of as a main as a central
especially
character
at that time. At that
time. So he got George Takei. There was a lot about Leonard Nimoy with Spock. There was a lot from the religious South in America. Because he had pointed ears, he looked like the devil.
Yeah.
And there was a lot like keep him in the background. And fair play to Roddenberry, he kept him in, and he ended up being a fan favourite.
Yeah, I genuinely think
so. It went from the studio going keep him in the background to suddenly we want more of.
Yeah, I think there was definitely a thing of like you get the archetypes in this, and there's either one of two things going on here. Either kind of like Roddenberry kind of used all this clout he could just to get a female on the bridge and an Asian on the bridge and a guy who kind of looked a bit like devil pointing his on the bridge. And then when it came to
and a coloured on the bridge as well.
Yeah, and all these
when
things.
Did we get it? Is there her in this episode?
She's not.
I don't think so. But my point was, like, I think that then where it came to the dialogue where they go, it's like, right, Asian guy can do maths. The woman can be hysterical. He's going like either one of two things. Either Roddenberry went, well, yeah, sure, we're still in the 60s. Or he went, oh, for Christ's sake. Okay, if that's what I've got to do to get them on the screen, fine.
Yeah.
It's one or the other.
I think it's a sort of a 50, give a bit, take a bit.
Because let's face it, Roddenberry was a visionary. He was wonderful, but he's still a person of his time. He can't escape. Like some of his views probably weren't perfect, even though he was better than most. None of us are.
Was James frozen? Yeah.
I think he has frozen for a second. Jim, you're back.
You guys froze on me, so yeah, we're back.
All right.
Not a bit. Anyway, sorry, you were saying.
I was just going through that basically I've just found it really funny that it's like either Roddenberry was faced with a decision whereby he's finally got like an Asian and a woman on the bridge. Like, right, the woman's going to be hysterical. The Asian's going to be like good at maths. And he's going, okay, if that's what I've got to do. Either that or he was like, well, it's still the 60s. I'm still like a child of my time. Yeah, sure, that comes about right.
Yeah. And a couple of other like details I want to pick out. Gary Mitchell talks about, him and Kirk sort of talk about the past, and he says, oh, well, I pointed that lab technician in your direction. He says, I nearly married her. Do we think that's Carol Marcus that they might be talking about there?
I never picked up on that, but you know what?
Yeah, it could be.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's a really good pickup. The other thing of the same thing that I picked up on was that they mentioned that he was in Lieutenant Kirk's class in the academy. Now, Kirk, if I'm remembering correctly, from certainly my extended mythology of Star Trek, wasn't Kirk like the youngest captain of Starfleet at mid-20s?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when he was teaching as Lieutenant Kirk, what is he, 10?
No. I thought he meant that he came through they went through the academy together.
No, he said he was in his class as if he was the teacher. That was certainly presented as if he was the teacher.
I picked that up that he was in his class and Kirk was finishing top of his class.
That's not the reading I got from it.
Oh right, I've read that completely different then because I've read that as that Mitchell and Kirk went through the academy together, and Kirk was top of his class.
Because I forget the name of the class, but he said I was in your astrophysics class or whatever it was. And I don't think you worded that if you were in together. You go, when we were in that class.
I know what you mean. Yeah, it implies that he was teaching it rather than, interesting.
I mean, you can retcon it nicely. I appreciate that retcon, but...
We'll have to dig out his again.
I'd have to watch it again because I've always assumed that they were just in the same class together.
And
I like the thought that you got Shatner and Nappies teaching the class.
Another one I noticed is when Kirk used his little thing to announce everything over the ship, Spock just starts talking while he's doing it, and you're like, hang on, Spock, calm down. You're over the tan, are you? It's like Kirk's going, okay, we're about to go into the barrier, and Spock comes on, Captain, we're fucked.
well, it's quite interesting is this episode as well with Spock because Spock is up and down of having emotions and not having
Yeah.
emotions.
And it's only his
'Cause-
ancestor rather than his mum was human.
Yeah, but
It's
you have it in the beginning with the chess, and Kirk says you're playing an irritating game, and he goes, irritating. Ah, yes, one of your human emotions.
Yeah.
He's thinking what it is. And then you have him later on in the episode, he smiles, and then you have him shouting out as in shock about things. And
yeah,
so
and
it's sort of like non-emotion to emotions, a bit haywire. You can see that they're still working on the characters.
Yeah, it's
that's
much
it.
more sort of hardline Spock. Like, okay, here's your recommendations. You either strand him there or you kill him. Nothing else.
Because I think that's a thing. I think, like in answer to like the thing about the ancestor, I actually like the idea that Spock would talk about his mum like that. It's going, well, one of my ancestors, it was your fucking mum, Spock.
Yeah.
Actually, to be fair, I'm with Ian on this. I could see Spock talking about his mum in this situation, one of my ancestors, because she came before him.
And the other thing, I think Elliot's spot on, that is the thing where they're developing the character. I mean, like, I love the fact in the pilot, he actually laughs and he's very emotional. And then when you've got the when they reuse it for the menagerie, when they go into the courtroom and they reuse the scenes from the cage so they won't wasting that footage, they show a bit where he's laughing and then it cuts to Spock in the courtroom. It kind of like Kirk looks a bit surprised and Spock just raises an eyebrow. Well, it's a lovely little nod to it.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't that they were not wasting the footage. It was that they were behind in production time. It was like the menagerie is a season filler.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both, because I'm sure they mentioned in one of the extras, which I've seen in the past, that they was a production filler, but also just budget on these shows. They wanted to reuse that footage. They only wanted to take an hour and a half. Yeah,
it's a mixture of everything, but we're falling behind in production for getting them out on a weekly basis. So they did a 2-episode thing using the cage, which was the failed pilot, that then went on in the menagerie to win all sorts of awards for best sci-fi, which it sort of like shows. It sort of shows up the network for sort of dismissing it as rubbish, but it also sort of highlights that the network could see something in Star Trek. That's why it got a second pilot.
Yeah.
Because if there's anything they knew at that time, is that the cage would never see the light of day. No one was going to see that episode. Never.
Well, it did take about 20 years, didn't it, till we saw it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then, obviously, they kill him by dropping rocks on him, as we find out.
And,
anything else?
Yeah, Kirk changes his name between this episode and the next one.
Yes,
by Deadpool, which you can't blame him, because James Romeo Kirk doesn't sound right. And he thought, right, I'm captain now. I don't like this Romeo name that I've got. I'm going by Deadpool, and I'm going to be known as James Tiberius Kirk from now on. Canon fixed.
I think it wasn't meant to be because it's James R. Kirk. I believe it's meant to be Robert, because that's the name they used for Robert April later.
Yeah,
and Robert was always the name they loved.
It is.
Yeah,
I'm just throwing out fan canon to fix things.
But wouldn't it have been wonderful if his first middle name was Romeo? That would be so Kirk.
But it'd be so fitting.
But I just wanted, I mean, you guys have already picked up on it a bit, but I just love the idea that, again, you've got the female characters so hysterical. Like, they've finally managed to do some good by putting a female in bridge, and then they make her very hysterical. And when they're deciding
walking refrigeration unit.
And when they're deciding, who should we put back down the planet with that guy? Let's put the one person who sympathizes with him, who seems to be involved with the agenda. And then meanwhile, Spock's like, just kill him now, that's fine. Which kind of echoes back. I've never put it together before, but I think they picked that up for the Star Trek reboot in 2009, because Spock suddenly we'll just ditch Kirk on a planet and
isolate him on a planet. Another one picking up on maybe the women not being shown in the best light is you've got the sequence where they're going through the barrier and there's the random yeoman on the bridge and she just holds Gary Mitchell's hand as they're going through it, and it's like he's comforting her. This thing is just holding her hand. And it reminds me of in Airplane, where you've got that bit where there's the woman sort of stood behind Ted Stryker and she starts just rubbing her hands all over him, and it's sort of more and more vigorous the worse the turn gets. It's just silly, but there you go. It was what it was, wasn't it, in the 60s?
Well, let's remember the 60s is before political correctness.
I just want to check in one other thing as well, because it was beautiful. There's one moment with Scotty as well, and this is one of those wonderful flashes where you see, like, Scotty in this moment could be in any other episode, because he's there just like he's going, it's like, I fit that thing which he said about, and like he sounds so Scotty, he sounds so confident. You can see the character that's going to come from it. And he does a wonderful moment, which you can play in a TV show today, and it would not be out of place. The wonderful joke where he goes like, oh yeah, send down those death lasers that you asked for. And then so he goes like, Kirk's like, we didn't ask for any death lasers. Spock just walks past the camera with a death laser. It's like, thanks, Scotty. Yeah, it's like, that's just perfect. And they play it so subtly. Like now that would get so overplayed, but they just do it like it's not a thing, which is wonderful.
There's a lovely moment with Scotty as well when the ship starts getting better, when it starts powering up, and he just has a little smile. And, you can see, like, that's Scotty's relationship with the Enterprise in a nutshell, and it's there in his very first appearance. It's, my baby's feeling better,
Yeah, I'm loyal to the Enterprise.
Yeah.
Not the captain, not Starfleet, the Enterprise.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's really nice because the three main crew members which are featured here, which go on, you got Kirk. You can definitely see Kirk in him. Spock, okay, they need to round off the edges, but it's definitely Spock. And you've got Scotty, and he's definitely Scotty. The one which I'm actually so pleased that they managed to keep through from this, because I didn't give him too much to work with, as one Fleas does is George Takei. He really gets to be maths boy for a few things, but he is obviously something they must have seen in him in this.
Obviously, we don't have Dr. McCoy yet.
No, we've got this
Noah
Piper and Noah Hura, yeah. So there's still some way to go before it's Star Trek. But I do really enjoy this episode.
It's good fun.
You can watch it and you can see why you fell in love with this show in the first place. There's so much charm to it, and I don't mean that in a negative way. Like, I'm not sort of placating it by saying there's charm. I think it's a very good bit of TV for all its faults and all its old-fashioned sensibilities at times. I do still think this is an impressive bit of television.
Like, to be fair, this held up. In fact, it still holds up, but it held up as being able to be repeated on a weekly basis right into the 80s.
Yeah, later.
And all that. As until you start to get CGI, because it was models and matte paintings, it was so well made. I know some of its ideals might be a bit dated and that by the 80s, but it still held up as something you could watch.
Yeah.
Oh, what? Sorry, one other moment. I promised the last one, but there was just one other moment. It was where they finally break through to Mitchell, and he's like there in the cell, and his eyes kind of go to normal for a second. And he goes, Jim, and then Jim turns to Spock and goes, look, he seems to have returned to normal for a moment. His eyes are returned to normal. We might be able to get through to him in this moment, or Spock says it to him, either way. And it's like by the time they turn back after all this exposition, his eyes have gone back again. It's like, well, that's what you faced him. You could have tried to talk to him. You could have gone, come on, come back to us. Come on, like you're our friend. Just they blow the time.
You got to explain it for the audience, and by the time you've done that, it's great. It's great fun.
It is.
Yeah, I think that'll do us then. I think for Where No Man Has Gone Before for now. But next week then we've got episode 2 of Lower Decks, and whatever rabbit hole that leads us down into other episodes. At this stage, it could be absolutely anything, but that's the fun of it.
Before we go, we have got a little tiny sliver of Trek news, and all it is that. We know where Prodigy and Strange New World's going to be shown in certain areas. In the UK, it's gone to Sky. So if you're in a country that's got Sky, they have got Paramount Plus.
Yeah, which means Star Trek in the UK will be split between Netflix, Amazon, and Sky. So get saving your pennies.
Yeah.
If you want to let us know what you think of that or anything else, we're
I can let you know what I think of that.
Well, they have said that it's going to be Paramount Plus is also going to be available on Android devices, which is TV sticks,
everything.
which sort of you probably can subscribe to it through your Amazon. It's going to be available on iOS.
Yeah,
so,
we'll see how that shapes up over the coming months.
They've definitely said so. Sky is. It's 5 countries. I can't remember them all, but it's the UK, Australia, Italy, I think Germany, and it might be France. But I might not have the last 2 correct there.
Yeah, we'll find out.
But definitely the UK and Australia, it's on Sky.
Right. So if you want to let us know what you think, we're on Twitter at RetrekPod. You can email us retrekpod@gmail.com or come and join us on Facebook. Dr. Squee, what have you got coming up?
I'll just quickly also tune into Retrek Model Studios on YouTube. Fantastic channel. But guys, we've got first of all, just another plug for Squeefest the 3rd, which has got, of course, Retrek amongst other wonderful shows, and we so far confirmed Sophie Aldred, Ace from Doctor Who. We've got Una McCormack, who's the fantastic writer who's written for Star Trek, Doctor Who, Firefly, any kind of sci-fi probably you can think of she's written for. And who's the other guest? Sean Kelly from Storage Hunters. And this week on the Dr. Squeeze Show, 8 p.m. till 10 p.m, the Bear.live, we've got our friends from Talking Codswallop joining us, and we're going to be talking a bit more about their involvement in Squeefest and all things Talking Codswallop.
Fantastic. Cool. So thanks for trekking with us this time, and we'll see you next time on the Retrek.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Fascinating.